Karen destroyed the tennis lights for privacy, got sued, and paid $170,000 in civil court. What drives a person to shatter something beautiful for the sake of their own solitude, only to lose everything in the process? In the quiet, upscale neighborhood of Willow Creek, where manicured lawns and polite smiles hid simmering tensions, Karen Whitaker's obsession with privacy ignited a firestorm that would consume her life. This is a story of defiance, delusion, and the devastating consequences of a single reckless act of tale that reminds us how fragile the line is between self-preservation and self-destruction. Karen was a woman who cherished control. At 48, she lived alone in a pristine colonial-style house at the edge of Willow Creek's community park, a sprawling green space anchored by a pristine tennis court. The court was the heart of the neighborhood, where kids laughed, families bonded, and retirees traded stories under the glow of the court's towering floodlights. But to Karen, those lights were an invasion. Every evening, their harsh glare pierced her living room windows, illuminating her carefully curated world. She felt exposed, as if the entire town was peering into her soul. "I just want peace," she'd mutter to herself, drawing the curtains tighter each night. Her neighbors, though, saw her as an enigma. Karen rarely attended community events, declined invitations with curt nods, and kept her garden so immaculate it seemed to dare anyone to step on it. She wasn't unkind, but her aloofness built a wall no one could breach. Still, no one could have predicted the lengths she'd go to protect her sanctuary. It started with complaints. Karen began attending town meetings, her voice sharp as she demanded the tennis court lights be dimmed or turned off earlier. "They're a nuisance," she argued, her hazel eyes flashing with conviction. "People deserve privacy in their own homes." The town council listened politely but explained the lights were essential for safety and evening play. They offered compromises: shorter hours, angled bulbs, but Karen wouldn't budge. "It's my right," she insisted, her tone edging toward desperation. Frustrated, she took matters into her own hands. Late one humid July night, when the neighborhood slept under a blanket of stars, Karen crept out with a ladder and a crowbar. Her heart pounded, not with fear but with a strange exhilaration. She climbed to the first floodlight, its beam blinding, and swung. Glass shattered, raining down like jagged tears. One by one, she smashed all 8 lights, their metal frames groaning as they fell dark. By the time she finished, the court was shrouded in shadow, and Karen felt a fleeting triumph. She was invisible again. The next morning, Willow Creek buzzed with outrage. The tennis court, once a beacon of community spirit, was a crime scene. Shattered glass glittered on the asphalt, and the twisted remains of the lights stood like broken sentinels. Parents whispered about vandalism, kids mourned their canceled games, and the town council vowed to find the culprit. Karen, watching from her window, felt a pang of guilt but quickly buried it. "They'll thank me someday," she told herself. "They'll see I was right." Enter Javier Morales, a groundskeeper who'd worked at the park for over a decade. Javier was a quiet man, loved by all for his gentle humor and tireless care of the grounds. He wasn't just a worker, he was a fixture, coaching kids, tennis clinics, and planting flowers for the annual fair. But what no one knew until now was that Javier had a side hustle, installing discreet security cameras for extra income. One of those cameras, hidden in a tree near the tennis court, had captured Karen's midnight rampage in crisp detail. Javier hesitated to come forward. He liked Karen, in a distant way, and sensed her loneliness. But when the town offered a reward for information, and the community's anger grew, he couldn't stay silent. He handed the footage to the council, his hands trembling. "I didn't want to do this," he told them. "But it's not right what she did." The video was damning. Karen, cloaked in a dark hoodie, wielding the crowbar with methodical fury. The town was stunned. Karen Whitaker, the reclusive perfectionist, was a vandal. The backlash was swift. The council filed a civil suit, demanding $170,000 to cover repairs, lost revenue, and legal fees. Karen was served papers on a crisp autumn morning, the summons trembling in her hands as she stood on her porch. She hired a lawyer, a slick man named Ethan Caldwell, who argued she'd acted out of emotional distress caused by the lights. But the evidence was ironclad, and the community's resentment was palpable. At the trial, neighbors packed the courtroom, their faces a mix of pity and scorn. Karen sat rigid, her jaw tight, refusing to meet their eyes. Then came the twist no one saw coming. During the trial, Javier took the stand not just as a witness, but as a voice of unexpected compassion. He revealed something he'd kept secret. Months before, Karen had quietly paid for his daughter's medical bills when she'd been hospitalized with pneumonia. No one knew, not even his family, because Karen had sworn him to secrecy. "She's not a bad person," Javier said, his voice breaking. "She's just lost." The courtroom fell silent, and for a moment, Karen's icy facade cracked. A tear slid down her cheek, unseen by most but noticed by Javier. This revelation shifted the room's mood, but it couldn't undo the damage. The judge ruled against Karen, ordering her to pay the full $170,000. Her savings, her retirement fund, her carefully guarded security gone. The house she'd fought so hard to shield would have to be sold to cover the debt. The community, softened by Javier's story, offered no cheers, only a heavy silence. Karen had won her privacy that night, but at a cost far greater than she'd imagined. As the months passed, the tennis court was restored, its new lights softer but just as bright. Willow Creek moved on, but Karen didn't. She sold her home to a young family, their laughter filling the space where her silence once reigned. She moved to a small apartment across town, where no lights bothered her, but no neighbors knocked either. The isolation she'd craved was now her prison. Dis-moi. The word felt hollow now, a bitter echo of her defiance. She'd destroyed the lights to reclaim her world, but in doing so, she'd lost her place in it. The community she'd shunned had been her anchor, and Javier's kindness, her last lifeline, couldn't save her from herself. Sometimes, she'd drive by the tennis court at night, watching the kids play under the new lights, their joy a stark contrast to her emptiness. She'd wanted to be unseen, but now she was invisible in a way she'd never intended. In the end, Karen's story isn't just about a woman who broke some lights. It's about the human cost of isolation, the danger of letting fear outweigh connection, and the cruel irony of fighting for a right that leaves you with nothing. Her act of rebellion, born from a desperate need for control, cost her everything: her home, her savings, and the fragile ties she didn't realize she needed. And as the tennis court glowed again, casting its light across Willow Creek, it stood as a reminder. Sometimes, the things we destroy to protect ourselves are the very things that keep us whole. ND.